cluster this or that will group this one would be possibly ngayong ani ang iyang pagka-group. Okay? So, pwede ngayong ani ang iyang pagka-group at the end, kaya niya mag-group tanan triangle. Tanan, kaya sa kanina model mag-group tanan square. Kaya sa kanina model mag-group tanan circle. But a better unsupervised learning model will be able to do this. Okay? Dili pa ni siya better. Pero another type of another way or another clustering na pwede ma-generate sa kanisya na model. Okay? So let's say kanisya si model number 2. Si model number 1, ang iyang pagka-cluster is by shape. Si model number 2, ang iyang pagka-cluster is by color. Okay? But the best model among the 3 types of model would be able to do this. Okay? Kaya niya ma-cluster per shape, kaya po siya maka-create o cluster per color in a single model. Okay? So again, a good model will be able to do this, which is a very, kani siya pa lang kanang maka-capture siya og salient, meaning descriptive kayo siya na characteristic, makakuha siya og certain characteristic like shape or attribute na shape. Very good model na kayo na siya, unsupervised learning model. Imagine, ang imo lang ihatag are mga shapes and then si function or si model nimo is kaya niya ma-segregate na siya or ma-cluster na siya based on shapes. Okay? So, naka-learn siya na, okay, kani sila ng mga data points, kani siya na mga sample kay mga triangle or isa ni siya ka-cluster. Kani siya, isa po ni siya ka-cluster, isa po ni siya ka-cluster. Another model is na-cluster niya by color. So, ibig sabihin, ang attribute nga nakuha niya or ang salient sa iya para sa iya is ang color. Okay? So, nag-group niya yung ani. Okay? But, the best model would be able to capture this one. Kaya niya ma-cluster per shape and then, kaya po niya maka-come up sa kung nakay vector space or nakay space din ha, dugol-dugol ang mga same og color and then same shape. Okay? So, para sa ani, again, circular na ako dire na nakuha niya, mas duol ang mga yellow ang color, blue ang color, and then kaya po niya na cluster niya ang kanina na shape and kanina shape. So, this is the best unsupervised learning model among the 3 na sample, model 1 to 3. Okay? So that is unsupervised learning. So again, what's the difference between unsupervised learning and supervised learning? In supervised learning, you are given the input data and the output corresponding to that specific input, and we have a certain function for that. And then that function should be able to map a single input to a single or a one and only output. While in unsupervised learning, mamap gyapon nimo siya ang certain input to a single and one output. It's just that we don't have or we are not given, or the model rather is not given or was not given any target output for that. So si model mismo siya lang ang nag-learn of what would be the output of this one. So in this case, clustering. Okay, so nganong clustering ako example because usually you use a unsupervised learning model in a clustering na problem or a clustering na task. Okay. So, mo ni siya ang sample sa unsupervised learning. So, wala kay output, you are only given a data and a task or a problem. Okay, and then you need to come up with a good model for that, or you need to identify sa tuang case, murag lisod naman kayo sa tuwa kung maghimo pa tag sarili na to na model, no? Pero sa tuang case is we need to be able to identify what model to use given a certain task. Okay? So that's for the unsupervised learning. Okay, so another one is this one. Okay. Okay, so kung tanawin ninyo, again, as what I have said, no knowledge of output class or value pag unsupervised learning, data is unlabeled or value is unknown, the output value is unknown, and the goal is to determine data patterns or grouping. It's also called a self-guided learning algorithm. Okay, it has internal self-evaluation against some criteria. Okay, so example of a problem that is solved using unsupervised learning is k-means and other clustering. Or the algorithm that we can use for unsupervised learning is k-means clustering. Napudtoy, like for example, uh, in my class last time, katong nag student pa ko, gipahimo mi og self-organizing map. It's actually an algorithm that that does, or it's a model that does a unsupervised learning mechanism. So this is what an example of unsupervised learning mechanism. Actually, kung tanawon lang nako ni siya, SOM ang gamit ani or self-organizing map model or algorithm. So, ang iyang ginabuhat din is that ginatry niya na kani mga star. So, I hope na klaro sa inyo na kani mga star is dapat moadto siya sa center or what we call as the centroid. Okay? Moadto siya sa center sa specific na class. Okay? So, for example, this has 2,000 data points. Okay, tananin mo na siya 2,000 data points. And then the number of classes or clusters is equals to 15. Now, if you're going to look at this one, ang star niya is mag-start na siya og somewhere nga for example kaning green ha, kaning green, kani siya, kaning strongly kaning yellow green man ni siya, kaning green. Ang start ana niya kanina data point, kaning star nga data point dire. Tanawan nimo pag mag-usab siya na mag-start na siya di ari banda. Okay, diri na siya banda, which is something na mabilong pa siya sa yellow green nga class. As the model iterates or as the model learns, iteration meaning reading of input, magkahinay-hinay na siya adto sa center sa color green. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, pag nanan na siya sa center, sa kani siya na cluster, kani siya ng algorithm, dili na siya malibog kung nakay data point nga ang iyahang attributes is kung unsa ang attribute ani ni color green, dili na siya maglibog kung asa niya ibutang na data point. Mabilong ba siya sa yellow-green na cluster or mabilong siya sa green na cluster? Okay? So, when you have this kind of algorithm, ang ato ang pangitaon din ha is ang murag performance evaluation niya is ang centroid dapat na siya sa pinaka-center sa isa ka cluster. Okay, so the more siya nga nasa center, the better is your algorithm. Okay, so kani siya na mga data point, ang iyahang goal ani or ang iyahang task is to go to the centroid of that cluster. Okay, so that's using unsupervised learning. So kani siya mo ni siya mga data points niya nga na-learn na niya kaning naka-map na dira kanang mga naka-color na dira. Mo nang yung mga data points na yan ang na-learn. Okay? So, pag nanapoy bagong data point, itry na po na niya cluster and then compute for the centroid and then pag mas dual sa centroid, the better is the clustering niya or ang iyang grouping. Okay, so that's for the unsupervised learning. So other one nga dili na to na matakal sa kanina course is the semi-supervised and reinforcement learning. So semi-supervised is a combination of with data with the data is with an output or labeled siya and then naput tayo data na unlabeled. So combination siya. So we use some semi-supervised learning algorithms for that. And then reinforcement learning is self-interpreting but based on a system of rewards and punishment. So kanila ang keyword na niya, rewards and punishment. So katong mga self-driving cars, reinforcement learning algorithm ang gamit ana sa iya ha because how how it actually learns is that pag, for example, self-driving car, pag given a certain number of distance, wala siya nabangga, hatagan siya og reward. Or naay something sa equation or sa function nato na i-come up kaning reinforcement learning algorithm nga pag given a certain distance, wala siya kanang unsa na siya wala siya object nga example self-driving car wala siya nabangga na ay plus function dito na i-add sa imong algorithm. While pag given a certain number distance na ay noise siya na na-encounter, na ay punishment. So, na murag minus ka na makita na sa iyang algorithm. So, that's a for reinforcement learning. So, actually, if you're going to search for kanang mga robot type na machine learning experts nga naga-explore, usually diri na sila mo adto sa reinforcement learning. Okay? So, kana siya. And then, kato siya so far, the different types of learning. So, this is an example of the input. Okay? So, we go back to supervised learning. So, kani siya ang sample input. So, given a data set, so na ako'y data set, kaning input nako x, x1 to x5. Each input has the following attributes: name, age, location, and highest educational attainment. The input vector is also called a variety of names. So daghan siya possible na names, but I usually just simply call it as input. So, but if namoy makita ng mga textbook na moingon sa iya as patterns or features, example or instance, pwede na siya. Acceptable na siya. So, ibig sabihin kaning x1 to x5 dire, kani siya. We can call it also as pattern or feature or sample or example or instance. Kani siya. x1 to x5. Okay? So, pwede ninyo siya tawagon as that. So, an instance, a sample instance of your input would be x2, which has the following attributes. Okay? Pedro, 26, Digos, and college. Okay? Mo niya yung attributes. So, I normally use input for the input vector and then attributes for the attributes. Okay, but you can also call it as the input variables or the components or the features of the feature vector. Okay, so pwede na siya, laylay na term. But sa kuha, I normally use the word input and attributes. Okay, so these are the attributes, these are the possible inputs. So, if ibutang na ko siya sa isa ka set or ibutang na ko siya sa dictionary, ingani ang itsura. I have a dictionary called X, which has the following tupled inputs, which has si X1, kani siya. Okay? So, kani siya is or has the attributes na Jose, 25, Davao College. I have another attribute or I have another input which has the following attribute, Pedro, 26, Digos College. And I have another input and then which has the following attributes, another input which has the following attributes, and another input which has the following attributes. All of these are what we called our input vectors. Okay. Next is we have our output. The output may be a real number, in which case the process embodying the function is called a function estimator. So again, we say estimator or approximator pag supervised learning. And the output is called an output value or estimate. So the output of the function that we will be creating or the model that we will be creating is called output or the value or the estimate. Okay, or the approximate. Okay, so it depends. Or if prediction siya, so the prediction or the kung classifier ang ato ang model, the classification. If recognizer ang ato ang model, then the recognized output. Okay? So alternatively, the output may be categorical value, in which case the process embodying the function is variously called as the classifier. Kung categorical, recognizer, categorizer, and the output itself is called a label, a class, a category, or a decision. Vector valued outputs are also possible with components being real numbers or categorical values. So we are not limited with just an output ng numerical or real numbers. Real numbers meaning contains negative values, positive values, negative to positive, real numbers, and also floating points. But we can also have an output na categorical. So when we say categorical, could be a certain class. So dog, cat, bird is a class. Ito pang possible na class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 can also be a class depending on the task. So like say if it's a handwriting recognition or handwriting recognition between 1 to 10, class na siya. So categorical na siya. So meaning i-classify nimo siya into a certain category. So either 1 nga category ba siya, 2 nga category ba siya, 3 nga category ba siya. Pwede po A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Categorical po na siya. So either you classify it in a nga category, B nga category, C nga category. Okay? Or A nga class, B nga class, C nga class. Okay? So pwede nga na ato ang output. Next. So that is for the output. So we have the input, the output, and we do the training. It could either be kato siya, kung supervised, we focused on the supervised learning muna. Okay? This week, and up until next week, supervised learning lang tatanan. Okay? The supervised learning mechanism could either be implemented using batch method, ang yang training, or incremental method. When we say batch method, tanan nimo training dataset, sabay-sabay nimo na siya ipasa dito sa imong model. While incremental method is isa-isa siya. Okay? So, sequential. So, ibig sabihin, ang imong model will learn per input. Okay? Ang example ani sa iyaha is kanang mga neural networks. Example, ang very good example ani is recurrent neural network. Recurrent neural network will update the value or will update the function in every time step of input. While, like say for example, naive-based na algorithm, batch method na siya. Kay basahon niya tanan nimo input tapos mag-create na siya og kanang ginatawag nato og Bayesian na theory or Bayesian hypothesis based on all the inputs that you have fed on the algorithm. Okay? So, there are certain algorithm na applicable ang batch method, na apoy certain algorithm na mas okay ang incremental method. Okay? So, later on, we'll realize na neural networks, incremental yung ginagamit, while the earlier type of machine learning algorithms like naive-based batch method ang yung ginagamit. Okay, and then last slide would be about performance evaluation. So depending on the task that you are trying to solve, performance will be evaluated based on the test set. Okay, so it will not be based on the training set. In supervised learning, the inducted function is usually evaluated on a separate set of inputs. That's what I have given kanina as an example. So ang performance sa imuhang model or ang performance sa imuhang function will be tested using the test set. Okay? So again, test set are the unseen data set. Wala niya nakitaan sa imuhang training input. A hypothesized function is said to generalize well when it guesses well on the test set. So meaning, pag gamay ang iyahang error rate, or depende kung error ang iyang gina-compute for evaluation or accuracy or precision, ibig sabihin, good ang imuhang model. Okay? Good ang performance sa imuhang model. So, there are some tasks nga accuracy ang ginagamit for performance evaluation na po'y uban nga nagagamit og error rate. Okay? So, depende na siya. And then both mean squared error and the total number of errors are common measures. Okay, so kani siya mean squared error rate. So pwede ni siya na gamiton as evaluating the performance of your model. Okay? So mo ni siya katong gidrawing na ko ganina sa Jamboard na you have a model. So say for example your model is a classifier. So ang gibuhat nimo na model or function is a classifier that will classify um, an input in the test set to a certain class. Okay, so the classifier is trained, so that's the correct term. The classifier is trained on a given training set, which is different from your test set. Your classifier should be able to classify some input X. So your input X can also be an element of your training set, but it's not the prediction is the result, already the result of your classifier. Okay, so again, your input can be an element also of the input vectors from your training set, but ang iyang predictions is wala siya nakitaan diri sa training set. So, ibig sabihin, this certain pair, not necessarily nga nakitaan niya sa imuhang training set. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, pag nag-generate ka ng y prime nimo din which is the output, okay, this is already the result of your classifier, or this is also already the result of the prediction of your prediction model. Okay? So, ayun. If we will already be introduced to, like say, for example, next meeting, I will introduce you to 3 different supervised learning algorithm. Lahi-lahi na siya og way of evaluating its performance. Okay, so natay first introduce nato ang first 3 algorithms in under supervised learning method, and then another 3 on the next meeting. Okay, so that's it for the discussion. Okay, so far question. So hopefully nasabtan to siya, no? Ito siya na mga different concepts in terms of machine learning. Question so far before we go to the collab. Okay, so if none, I will be sharing this one. This is another, I will be introducing one library in Python, or one package in Python called pandas. Okay. So pandas is a package or library in Python that could create a data frame. Okay. So say for example, we have here an input called a data. Okay. Kani movie metadata.csv. Wait lang ha. Upload lang na to. Okay na na siya. Okay. So if we try to look at this file, so this is just actually a CSV file. So pwede lang siya sa spreadsheet. Hindi mo makitaan. Ipakita na ko siya ang example ani kung nasa sa spreadsheet. Kaya na siguro. Okay. So, isipan na lang na nasa spreadsheet ni siya. So, we have columns A, B, C, D, E, F, G, hantod sa column 28. Okay, so Z, tapos A, A, B, A, B. Okay, and then we have 5,044 entries. Okay, kontrahan natin ni siya. Pinadali sa taas. Okay, so kung nani siya sa spreadsheet, this will be the column header. Kaning movie title, color, director name, number of critic, and so on. So this is how your file looks like. And it's a CSV, so meaning comma-separated value siya na file. Okay? Now, let's think of this one as our input vector. Okay? So this will be our input vector. So if we are going to run this one, okay, so I will just be introducing, we'll just do some manipulation on our input data. Okay, so what if kanilang akong kailangan na input for the model? Okay, we should be able to do some manipulation on that given this whole data set. So meaning, kaning 5044, I believe na mo'y data analytics na subject, no? So sa data analytics, kaya ninyo ni ma-filter out kung asa lang diri ang data na usable, kung asa lang diri na data ang pwedeng magamit, and kung asa diri na data ang needs some cleaning. Okay? So, dili na nato na siya i-cover diri sa machine learning. But what I would want you to look at this data is that we have 5,043 except for the 5,044 entries. So, ibig sabihin natin 5,044 samples with kani siya na mga attributes. So, kani ang iyang attributes. Kani siya na input. And we'll try to consider kani siya tanan as our data set. Okay? Mani siya itong data set. So, wala pa ta nag-divide din kung asa nga itong gamiton for training. Wala pa po ta nagkuha diri kung asa itong gamiton for test set. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, when we try to predict if kani ba siya na movie or a certain movie will have a gross income or will have a sale of more than $5 million, $5 million, okay? We need to train this certain data set, and then the next time na mag-input ta og bago na sample, ma-predict na to kung sale ba siya og 5 million or dili. Okay? So based on this sample data. Okay? So medyo hinay siya. Okay, so what it actually does, or what is it actually doing is loading the movie metadata, movie_metadata.csv na file. Okay? And then, so once na ma-load na siya, lato na nato na moment siya, we can, if normally man good, mas dako pa ni ang mga data set, no? Labaw na ka ng mga gigabytes ng data. More than 5,000 na gid na ang iyahang ang samples. So, moabot na nag-million ang samples. Kung nakay mga tweets ang imong data, millions na gid na ang tweets na imong mag-gather. So, kani siya, gamay lang ni siya, nasa 5,044. Medyo hinay man good akong net mo siya, kuan. Sabra na to ang runtime niya. Change runtime. Okay. I'll upload. Upload lang na to sa metadata. Okay, so we now have the movie metadata.csv. So, pandas, okay, still na niya makita. Copy path na lang pag ihana ka. Kung gusto niyo makuha yung exact path. Okay. So what it actually does is that it pandas converts your CSV file into a data frame. So karon, si data is already a data frame of your movie metadata.csv. Okay, so if we do manipulation, so tanawin mo, data frame na siya, ang iyang type of data. So if we do manipulation of this one, CSV file nimo, naka-data frame na siya. So these are the commands, the possible commands that you can do with a data frame. Say data.shape will give you the shape of your data. So when you say shape of your data sa table, pila ang number of rows, kani siya, and then number of columns. Okay? Rows and then columns. And then if you wanted to know what are the columns in your data frame, mo ni siya different columns. Okay, katong ganina, katong column header, kung naka-spreadsheet na siya, mo ni siya ang different columns. So these are different information. So movie title could either be color. So sa kong discussion ganina, this is what we call the attributes. Okay, so mo ni siya ang atong attributes. Ato ang samples kay 5044 are our x. So if we get the length of our x, it will be 5044. And then these are our different attributes. Okay, now if you wanted to filter the data, okay, so kung tanaw na to tanan data, okay, print na tanan data, inga na siya. But if we do slicing, so we've already learned about slicing. To say first 4 elements, or then na to na siya paon. Okay, so we can also do slicing for this one. So if we wanted to start from 100 and then end with the last element every 2 steps, okay, you can also do that kind of slicing. Okay, 102, 104 na siya step hantod sa pinaka-last, so -1, hantod sa the last na value nimo, and then naka-step na 2. So you can also do slicing for that. So why do we need to do this one? Like say for example, if we only have to select a specific number of input in your data set as your training set. Okay, so this is how you slice your data set. Okay, we've already learned this one last meeting. Now, if we don't want to see all the attributes, gusto lang nato kani siyang makitaan, tanan director names, you can also do this one. Okay, data.director name, so your data frame .director name na column, and then how many. So the first of 4, ang imong gusto na kwaon, you can also do that one. Okay. And then if you want multiple columns, you can do this one. You can initialize a variable called calls with a value na kani siya ng mga columns na gusto mo extract. So para makabalo ka without looking at the spreadsheet, kung unsa ang mga attributes sa imong input values or input vectors, you execute this command, data.columns. So what I would want to retrieve in data.columns is kanilang movie title and director name. Gusto na ko makabalo, given a movie, kinsa ang director. So I could use this one. Okay? So if ang input vector na ko will only contain a movie title and a director name, so ing-ani una ko siya, i-retrieve una na ko siya, only the movie title and the director name, tapos i-print na ko siya diari. So if dili na ko siya gusto i-limit, then tanggalon na ko na siya. Okay? So I can only retrieve a movie type. The data that will be displayed will only be the following. Okay? Hangtod sa pinaka-last na entry. Okay, so if the problem is to find all the movies that is directed by James Cameron, so I can do this one. You have your data frame, and then given the data, you only extract all director name that is equal to James Cameron. Okay, so instead of doing this one, printing all the director name, I could filter out all the movies that are directed by James Cameron. Okay, So, kana siya, director name, si James Cameron lang. And then, I can also do sorting of values. So, say, sort by gross income, and so on and so forth. Then retrieve lang nako kani siya, ang movie title and director name, and then isort na ko siya by gross. So what if my input vector would only contain this one? Ang ako ang input vector is sorted na siya. So dili siya katong randomized lang or naka-unordered siya. So I can do this one. Okay. Kay first 5 lang man ako ang try of retrieve. So mo siya. Okay, so mo siya ang top 5 movies na top grossers. Okay, so first you have the Avatar, and then Titanic, Jurassic World, and then Avengers, and the Avengers. Okay, so nag-double entry gani ang the Avengers, so basig na siya lahi na attribute. Okay. So ano siya? So we can do that one. Okay, so what if I'm going to get the top 5 films of Michael Bay? So this is how I'm going to do that one. I'm going to sort it first. So, kuha na ko ang mga films by gross. So, kuha na ko ang top, wala pa ko nagkuha sa top 5. Ako lang sang sort ang tanan mga movies by gross income niya. And then, you get all the movie title, kanilang siya na column and the gross, and then you filter it out. From these different columns, you only filter that is already sorted all the movies that is directed by Michael Bay. And you get the top 5. As per the problem, na top 5 films lang. So what if our input vector is only the top 5 films of Michael Bay? Then this is how we do it. Okay? So what if ang training data nako, kailangan ako, ang training data nako kay tanan movies ni Michael Bay na ang gross income is more than 1 million. So I need to be able to filter that out from my data set. Okay. And then last would be something like this one. Multiple conditions. So you can also do this one. Find all the films from Canada that have Hugh Jackman as the actor one name or the leading actor. Okay. So pwede po makakuha using the kanisang and na symbol. Okay. So I can do that one. Okay, so this is manipulating data examples. Wala pa to wala pa tayo output ani. Everything is about input. Okay? If you're going to look at this one, pag nakaing aning type of data set, kabalo na dayon ka na ang possible na mahimong problem ani is, or ang task ani is to predict given a model if it will generate a good sale. Okay. Given the data set, kailangan po niya siya gross o ano dire. Na siya gross na sales, gross sale, and then na po niya siya expenses. Asan yung expenses niya? Budget there. Okay, na siya budget. So if we wanted to know the gross sale or ang sale niya, we can just simply deduct the budget from the gross. So pila ang nakita niya, total nakita niya, minus the budget of the film, then you would know kung pila ang iyahang income or pila ang iyahang net na sale for that certain movie. So if we wanted to predict, if the problem is to predict the net sale of a given movie, given this certain attributes, okay, we should be able to do that one based on this data set. Kung nakainganin na training data. Okay? So, mo ni siya ang imuhang an example of an input, okay, to your data set. So, text pa lang ni siya, dili pa ni siya katong images. Okay, so maybe on our next meeting, ang sample na po nato would be data set nga image na po ang iyahang. At yung mga possible attribute pag image ang data set. Okay? So, that's it for data manipulation. Okay, so, if we wanted to come up with some input vectors na ingani, you can do this one. Question so far? Before we do the activity. Okay? So, if none, I'm going to give you the instruction for the activity. Okay, so you submit this one. Okay, so naka-draft pa lang siya, but ano siya. So you create a collab file or depende kung gamit mo sarili ninyo na interpreter. Okay? But I would suggest mag-collab na lang mo para di na mo kailangan mag-install og pandas. Okay? So you just simply import pero i-upload man to na akong sample ganina. So using the same dataset, katong movie review dataset, you are to create a program that will select all movie title, director name, and gross of all movies that are black and white. Okay? So tanan movies nga black and white. So, class, two types ata lang ang movies, either colored siya na movie or black and white siya na movie. Okay, so first problem na siya. Second is for you to create a program that will select all movie title from year 2000 to 2010. Third, to select all English movie that are in USA, because there are some English movies that are that are in Canada siya gi-release. Okay, so tanan lang English movie title nga within sa USA. Okay, so you need to select the attributes. So kani siya, select all. Pag select all gani, ibig sabihin select all attributes of that given sample sa imong input data. Okay? Pag select all, ibig sabihin show all attributes. Count how many movies are PG-13. So pag may yung tag count, you just simply give me, so the result would be, the result of your code would be a number, a specific number that is a count of all the movies that are PG-13. Okay, so we already know kung saan pag-compute sa count or pagkuha sa count. Compute for the movie sales, which is to compute for the sales, you get the gross minus the budget of that movie. Of all the movies in number 2. So, tanan ma-retrieve nimo din na movies, i-compute nimo ang sales nila from 2000 to 2010. And then last but not the least would be number 6. If we are going to use that data set, 5,044 entries, get the 80% of that data as your training set and 20% of that sample or your input as your test set. Show to me your training set and how many of that is your training set, and then show also your test set and how many would be your test set. So that would be number 6. Okay, so questions so far for the activity? Okay? Wala? Okay, none. So, yes. Oh, 3 p.m. nang. Kaya na ninyo na siya 3 p.m. Kaya lang din siya 3 p.m. Okay? So, I'm going to enable this one. Okay, so you can go to your classroom and do the activity. Sa number 6, kay with attributes siya. Okay. So, mo na siyang pasabot sa show. Okay, show and count. Okay. So, show all the attributes. So, ibig sabihin, ipakita ninyo sa kuha katong 80% na training set o 20% na test set. And then, pila ka buok na siya. Okay. I'll try to check the code sa katong mga malate if tanaan ako. Okay, I'll try to evaluate if I will honor late submissions. But as the same as what I did in the previous activities, dili man ako gina-close ang submission. So ibig sabihin, ma-accept siya although matag siya as late. Okay, so i-check magyapon ako na siya kung pwede ba siya or pwede siya i-honor.